I did it, everybody. I did it. I got all the mounts. There's the Raptor, the starting one, the Springer, the bouncy one. No, actually, let's just show them all right now. Raptor, far jumps, half decent little stamina as a compensation, perhaps. But it's also pretty fast. Pretty cool. Let's hop back on here. Then we have our Springer. The bouncy rabbit. Can go very high. Bam! Anyway. Then we have our Skimmer, which is like a giant flying manta ray. Pretty cool. It basically glides, not like a real fly, but more so just sort of ascends over the ground. It can actually be used for going over quicksand as well as water, as well as it can climb up over certain elevations from such surfaces, unlike other mounts. So that is a definite sort of like benefit to that. To some extent, it can go up surfaces kind of like that, unlike other mounts, which is also usually too steep for the player to go up. But it takes a certain amount of stamina per to really kind of manage it. So that's the Skimmer also. Then there's the fourth mount, which is not at all needed for storyline, but is quite nice to have. The Jackal mount. Does like a cool little teleporty thing. This can actually be used for slightly longer sort of distance jumps. But it can also be used to slow down your falling rates from up higher. But it's also pretty useful evasive-wise. So yeah, pretty cool. Yeah, it just sort of like slowed down the falling rates and set it back to like a resetting by moving me forward. Besides that, it is basically a sandy made sort of jackal thing. Pretty awesome. And also quite fun to ride on, I would say. And then the last mount, which is undoubtedly the hardest to get your hands on, is also the most expensive mount, the Griffon mount. It takes some 6 achievements perhaps to get. There's a collection to do on like all of these maps, all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 maps. And it takes 250 gold total. I say total because each item purchase for the Griffon mount is 25 gold. Ultimately it builds up to 250. But it is very rewarding to get. Now, it doesn't necessarily run any faster than the Raptor mount, but that's not what makes it very at all special, in my opinion. But more so, it's a more glidey, flyy sort of mount that well exceeds the potential of a regular glider. Just like all that gliding mastery, just not even as much of a comparison at all. It could essentially be used for slight climbing capabilities, like the Springer, but not on the same kind of climbing comparison. But there's some things worth noting about it. Like, obviously, long jumps aren't quite an issue with it. Or at least not in comparison to most other mounts. But there is another kind of benefit to this. But yeah, with the dives, you can basically pick up your speed by a lot. And if you are actually good with using the mount, there is a little more benefit to that than just going up high just to lose all that elevation for the sake of speed. You can actually go back up a little higher in exchange for a lot of that speed. So yeah, it is without a doubt one of the coolest mounts to be using. The amount of high-speed capabilities that will be in the right hands, I think, will be quite interesting. And of course, that's also to take compensation for your elevation to some extent, or one for the other. And that could also prove some more interesting sort of ways to reach locations, like sort of dive locations, where you have to go down and then swoop back up, is what I'm kind of hoping for.
I'm sorry, we're having trouble finding room.
But yeah, that wasn't really tall enough for me to do a dive. Like, I just tried. But there is a lot of fun mount possibilities with this, to be sure. And scaling things is going to be easier than ever with the Griffin and the Springer. And to some extent, the Skimmer, actually. But that's probably something to kind of talk about another time. Like, I did kind of actually already explain it a bit, where the Skimmer can go up certain surfaces a little better than other mounts, or even players for that matter. But yeah, let's kind of move on and talk about something else. So let's talk about the Deadeye class. This is my character, Lady Murica. I was trying to think, I want to go Uncle Sam, but I don't want to be too obvious with it. But also kind of still stick with the theme and be like, yeah, guns and crap. So, the Deadeye weapon is the rifle. That is the wrong weapon. The rifle. Now, part of Deadeye's thing is that it can gain a lot more range than its regular attacks if you're in kneeling. And another kind of thing it has is you have Deadeye's mark. Now this sets a mark on a target, and you basically get increasing damage the more you're attacking at it with mark. And mark also does another effect, similar to the stealing effect, which shows up in your F1.
You're in my sights. Replenishing.
In kneeling, we actually have this much range. This line here is actually a big ol' circle around us. That is our range right now. We can hit anything within that range. and if we have it in our target sights, per hit or per attack we do, builds up one of these charges. There is 7 for me right now because I am specialized that, but otherwise I believe it's around 5 of them, if I'm not mistaken. But the way I specialize this character is that if they reach all of the full capacity, then they also get healed from it. And with it being a higher capacity, it means they can build up more malice, as these are called, malice charges. And that allows me to perform more and more damage. So I basically get, I think it's like 6% more damage of malice than normally. Yeah, he's out of range. But fortunately for me, I can actually dodge forward and still be in kneeling. And I can use my utilities fine from this location.
Feel the fury.
Essentially, Deadeye becomes pretty range possible. Like, not just possible, but very range, like, powerful, even. I'm not sure if I can actually hit this from here. Now I can. So yeah, a number of enemies would be quite considerably easier to just mow down with this compared to, say, being regular thief. But at the same time, you're still a squishy thief to some extent. And if I still have the ability to fight mobile, I'm just not going to have the same kind of, like, range benefits. And since I'm a thief and not an engineer, I can still switch to another weapon, like say pistol. Go in with some pistol thief action. Be guns and more guns. Not this many. I'm not too comfortable with just screwing around like this. I can still do Deadeye's mark like this and do my little stealing skills like so. I just need to keep in mind my initiative and keep moving. I can always just switch between the two at will. So yeah, not a problem at all.
You must like me.
What's unfortunate to me is to actually exit the kneeling, I have to manually press this button. Like either with mouse or with the 5 key. Oh. No, you don't. Something worth mentioning about mounts, by the way, is that you cannot enter them when you're in combat. Like, it's not the same as when you're using a glider. You can still enter in use your glider when you're entered in combat. But when you're in combat, you would see like a little sword icon over your mounts. Like, actually, let me quickly demonstrate that. Just because this fool's here. Yeah, see this little sword over that? I can't use my mount at all right now. Now I can. After just spamming my X key that entire time. And by the way, I came up here specifically as like a returning point because there's always enemies around every corner in the Crystal Desert lands. So I have to always improvise like a safe spot if I want to just stop and talk or something. Now, some of you are probably familiar knowing I would have all these other skills. I just don't feel like using them specifically right now. Like, I could use them, but I would prefer not to at this time being. Let's see, this one, throw an orb of magic, shadow magic that damages nearby foes at your target location. You may reactivate this skill to swap places with that orb. Damage is increased for each stack of malice. Like, that's not bad, but I would still kind of prefer to be able to just summon distractions to keep my enemies going so I can just obliterate them more from afar and not just be harassed by enemies up close and just remain in a more kneeled stance is what the intent of that is, because when I'm kneeling I do a lot of damage. Now at the same time, for travel around this place when I've been harvesting nodes, I would like to use this. Just set this up ahead of myself, hang out there, maybe harvest a node right upon it, then quickly rush over to another node before my stealth wears off. Or take that opportunity to lose my aggro, and like, say I did have aggro, I'd be able to lose it with that if I traveled enough and kept enemies off me long enough. Then I'd be able to hop on a mount and get away. So, yeah. For travel, it's definitely quite more convenient, especially if I'm still doing, like, typical catch-up small tasks. Something small I've noticed is that they gave a sound for changing, like, minis. Try this on. Ow.
Not even your spirit. I feel good.
Ow. Ow. Fine.
One shot at centaur.
did you get over there? I'll put you out of your misery.
Feel the fury.
It'll take a bit, but it'll happen, I promise. I think I seen another one up here a bit ago. Just like flopping all over the place. Not sure why he was missing a head. I think something over here attacked him. And then he probably just won. Anyway. By the way, something worth mentioning about the jackal mount, it can go through little things like this. Where it's like portals to other locations. It'd be like quicker travel and some light. Or even a more less known about little travel location for some cases. So the last thing's worth mentioning when it comes to mounts is that each one has their own added effect of when they enter combat. So the jackal's effect when entering in combat is that it gives barrier to the player who is riding it. I don't actually know if it does that to the other players that are around and about. I didn't actually really test that. But at the very least, that is quite useful. For like, especially staying alive in like groups of enemies. Let's see. There. Doesn't really explain, but at the very least it says I have 7,700 barrier from that. But let's see. Griffons. It's basically the ability to swoop down and crash on enemies. So basically the dive down thing I've done a bit ago earlier in this video, that is basically the same thing.
The Hamasine are sabotaging our pipes.
What? Why would they do that?
Just please, hear me out. Our families and friends are depending on us to get their water flowing again as soon as possible. As always, stay alert for unwanted attention from the wildlife out here.
May I be excused? I think I'm needed back in the city.
All right, all right. Get to work, everyone. Watch out for yourselves out there.
Yeah, it seems to give me protection and swiftness when it comes to the griffin one. That might also be something all the other ones might be doing, actually, just because I have completed the mastery to all of them. But, let's see here. I'm pretty sure this one grants healing. Yes. Oh, and it does benefit to revive amount. Some 25% is actually not that bad. Like, say someone is down. Oh, I butchered that. Wrong button. Use my one skill, it'll cause healing and benefit to revival. Next we have the Springer. This one causes knockdown and also a decent amount of damage. I don't know if jumping up higher benefits the amount of damage at all, or the CC amount, but at the very least, yeah, pretty cool. And then for Raptor, it is a pull amount. So foes around, I believe it's like a radius of like this or so, basically will get pulled in. Also, it seems the protection and swiftness come from every single mount. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that's just it's either something that just sort of happens or it's a master related item. Just a master related effect. That. So yeah, I guess that basically does it for this video. When it comes to mounts and such.
I want to scare her, not kill her.
And I guess I'm also done basically discussing what I feel is like right away worth mentioning of like Deadeye. Like there isn't anything else in effects I should probably bring up that I can think of. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I'm 41 Solstice 25, Winter Solstice 8, and you have yourselves a great day. Bye bye.